was it a bit of an uphill battle at the time to even make the case for the value of analytics? Because I mean, nowadays we talk about, the idea of data literacy within companies. It's almost understood implicitly that every company needs some kind of data strategy. It's become cliche to say so. Back then, like, did you have to get really good at arguing for data? And if so, it'd be great to hear that pitch too, maybe. But like, what were your thoughts on that side of
So
things?
I guess I was fortunate. So first of all, when I moved from academia to a hedge fund, obviously hedge funds were all about data, right? So uh, using crazy data sources actually back in the day. And then when I moved to tech, I tended to end up in organizations that were marketing oriented, and so marketing people were also. I mean, so there was already the notion of direct marketing and targeting and things like that, right? So I don't think at that time. I think the advertising people were still behind and still catching up, because I think the pioneer in this case would be not actually Google, but it would be Overture, right? So the old company Overture, who pioneered this whole what is it? Paid sponsored search results, and then Google, and then a bunch of people innovated around auctions.
Yeah, it's really funny when you start talking about the history of Silicon Valley in that way and how like Google was not the first search engine, and
No,
Airbnb.
no, I mean, yeah, yeah, I remember being in a meeting with people. So the hot search engine back then, as far as tech people, was a company called Inktomi, which came out of UC Berkeley.
Oh wow.
And so I remember being in a meeting and people were showing Google. We were trying it. Wow, these results are great. Uh, and then I ran into some Inktomi people, and then I could sense that there was something was up, because they were a bit defensive about this whole Google thing.
Wow. That's really cool. Yeah, I mean, amazing how things change and then how the orthodoxy shifts with it. And actually, on that note, in terms of the tooling then behind data science, obviously that's evolved a lot. We've gone from pure SQL tables, Excel, to now obviously scikit-learn and pandas are part of the one-two punch of the data scientist arsenal. What are some of the biggest changes you've seen in the last, say, decade or two since data science really came into its own?
Oh, so I mean, I would say so. Uh, scale is number one, right? So I mean, I think, um, yeah. So a lot of usage of traditional relational databases. So I could map my journey here actually. So traditional relational databases, and then we all started to use open source databases like Postgres and MySQL, which had scaling problems at some point. And then there was a generation of startups. I don't know if you folks are familiar with what were called MPP databases, massively parallel databases around, I don't know, 2006, 7, 8. So this would be Greenplum, Aster Data. So they would take something like Postgres and distribute it across a cluster. So then you would go. I still remember, actually we were the first external user of Greenplum. I still remember things that would take me uh, 12 hours, and then you would run it on Greenplum. It would finish in like 2 minutes, right? So uh, and then shortly after that, then Google published their MapReduce paper, and so then Doug Cutting, and Mike Caffarella uh, started the Hadoop project, and so then uh, we all started using Hadoop. But then there was no SQL layer on top of Hadoop, so it was like insane to get anything done. You had to write these massive amounts of MapReduce code, and then people started putting higher level interfaces like Pig and Hive on top of it. And then to me, actually, I was one of the first people who really got excited about Apache Spark and started writing about it and telling people about it. Plus, it was just that. So in many ways, Hadoop kind of validated this whole. We can handle a lot of data, so scale, and then we can also handle a lot of different types of data, the whole variety thing, right? So, but then it was batch oriented, right? So you couldn't use it for machine learning or analytics. So then Apache Spark came out. It could do pretty much most of the things Hadoop. I mean, it could do the things as an analyst that you needed out of Hadoop, but it was fast. And then you can start doing machine learning on a cluster. But in the early days of Spark, obviously there was no machine learning library like MLlib is now for Apache Spark. So then everyone was writing their own. So there was probably like, I don't know, hundreds and hundreds of clustering libraries that people wrote on their own, right? And then at some point, a lot of people were using Python, so even Spark added a Python API, and then scikit-learn happened, and then now we're here with everything is basically aimed at people who Python users, right? So even the deep learning libraries, right? So, but yeah, so I would say the changes would be really, I mean, so scale, the different types of data you can handle, especially now, as you can see, right? So we have images, not just text and unstructured data, but images and audio, and streaming in real time.